Welcome back into Exit 99 Sports. As always, Caleb Deloach, and welcome back to Mr. Cody Hinkebine. It's been a few weeks, Cody, since we've had you on, about a month or so. Finished up spring sports and wanted to bring Cody back on because we're going to do a little bit of a full year in review type episode today. Kind of, all sports are over with. Everything's out of the way now into the summer, so start back from the beginning, starting to fall, football, volleyball, all that jazz, and then take it all the way to the beginning. Cody and I, we do football and basketball for Jackson, so apologies if we talk a lot about Jackson in this, because that's where we were at for every single football and basketball game. But we'll do the best to try to talk about everybody here, be equal opportunist here, talking about folks. So, Cody, just very simply say it was a pretty fun year overall across the board in all sports.
Yeah, it was a good year. A lot of people consider football the kickoff to, the school year, the season, as it will be here at the end of August, be here before we know it. But get into the fun part all the way to where we just kind of ended with baseball and stuff. Yeah.
So, let's go ahead and jump right into it, I guess. We can start, talk about football a little bit. This past fall now, a long time ago, almost a year ago now, I got into football season. The cool thing, Cape and Jackson in, obviously, this Cape County here really dominate the news cycle when it comes to football, and they've been the lone competition in the area for a very, very long time. But the cool thing this past year, Saxony got a football team for the first time, so that was really, really neat. They had their inaugural season this past year. They played as a JV team, and so they played a lot of other schools' JV squads. They went undefeated in doing so, had a good year. I guess you can say it was a combination of maybe they should beat these teams, but also at the same time, Cody, you never know what to expect. Some of these kids may have not really played much football in their life and haven't played it all of high school for a lot of them.
Yeah, high scoring out of the gate. We saw that in their very first game against Donovan, 40-38. Albeit you said playing against a lot of these JVs, but for this team to score, 27 points or more in every single game is pretty good. Yeah,
so I'm excited. They're going to be moving up to varsity competition this next year. So we get to see them play maybe against some better competition. They graduated 6 seniors. They got 9 seniors coming on the way up. So it'll be fun. I think they're going to be fun this next year, but we'll get there when we get there. So Saxony, first season, pretty good start, I would say. Yep. And then you can say the two big dogs still at the moment in the area, Cape and Jackson, both had really good seasons. Cape started the year 5-0, albeit against maybe some lesser competition. Started out with 5 straight teams that are under 500 in the year. Then they played Jackson, took their first loss of the season, 42-6, then bounced back, crushed Farmington, played a pretty tough Lift for Life team. I remember Lift for Life, they went pretty deep in the playoffs. I know they beat Dexter in the playoffs. And then they crushed Kennett before going into the Class 5 tournament. Their district, they beat Webster Groves, beat Bluff, and then inevitably lost to Cardinal Ritter, which was kind of, if you're looking at, Cape season coming into it, a lot of optimism. They had a lot of seniors going into this last year's team, a lot of very, very good players. Zaire Thomas, one of the most explosive athletes in all of Southeast Missouri. Not to be negative, but it felt like when the district assignments came out, like right before week 1, the fate was a little bit sealed. You never want to say never, but we knew Cardinal Ritter was a monster coming into the season. They've got a dozen kids going to be playing in high major football. We watched them play. Their quarterback's going to Illinois. Their best running back is going to Nebraska. Their best receivers going to Ole Miss, I think. Absolutely loaded. Just an insane team. And unfortunately, into Cape season, but like I said, Cape, really good year, 10-2. It feels like Coach Gibbs really has them in a good spot. It really feels like it's rolling. I was pulled up. They've got 10 wins. They've had 10 wins the last 3 years. I like where Cape's at. They did lose a lot, Cody, but pretty nice spot they're in right now. They bring back a lot of talent once again.
Yeah, you talked about the Thomas and Boyd and a lot of their key players. But whenever I look down through their schedule, start the season 5-0, You have 4 shutouts. I don't care who you're playing. You have 4 shutouts throughout a football season. That's pretty good. And against Jackson, the only game where they had under 28 until the Cardinal Ritter game.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, Jackson started the season against Cardinal Ritter. Cape got a good look at them and felt like that was the collision course their entire season.
Right. Yeah. It was pretty much, that's what they were looking forward to. Obviously, we'll get to a little bit. The Jackson game was the, maybe the marquee matchup during the regular season, but yeah, you knew where it was going to lead to, and it did end up with Cardinal Ritter, and Cardinal Ritter kind of blowing the doors off of them a little bit. But Cardinal Ritter stuff, they're a monster. They're a freak of nature, and so it is what it is kind of coming into the season. Like I said, a lot of guys had good years. We said Thomas was phenomenal at wide receiver and running back. He's going to be playing up in Wisconsin. Boyd was really, really good. He got hurt near the end of the season. I don't know where, he might have ended up with health at, but he was phenomenal throughout the year, kind of being the thunder to Thomas's lightning, if you will. And then, Pittman, full year at quarterback. The year before really sucked. He got hurt, I think, game 1, and Jathan Spain had to step in and play quarterback for him last year. But yeah, Pittman did a good job leading the way. Good runner, pretty good arm, threw it, especially aired it out against some of these teams early in the season. And yeah, good season for Cape. They're going to be losing a decent amount. We'll get to that, later when we start previewing football a little bit more. They're losing a decent amount of talent, so we'll see how they're able to bounce back going into next year. But really, really good senior class this past year, led them to a lot of wins. And like I said, finished there. I mean, a lot of those guys played 3 years of varsity, and they graduate with 30 wins the last 3 years. So that's pretty big time. So we'll jump then finally into Jackson. Like I said, Cody and I, we see every Jackson football game. We are there calling it on the radio. And I would say going into last year, like I said, this is the team we're more acquainted with. I didn't really know what to expect. Jackson had lost a lot of talent. They lost a quarterback, Adrian Fox. They lost their entire defensive line. They lost a lot, in the defensive backfield. There's a lot of question marks for me, and, kind of start a little bit rough. But by the end of the year, Jackson definitely had it rolling.
We knew they were going to be young. We knew the first 3 games of the year were going to probably be their hardest games of the year, and that proved to be so. When you have a young team and you're starting with a Cardinal Ritter, Cahokia, Edwardsville, I mean, that's pretty
on the
tough.
Road too.
Yeah. Thought the Edwardsville game was going to be a home game. We had a little scare there, so we had to move it back a day, go to their place. You can make the excuses you want, but Jackson just not enough there to come away with that one. So they start the season 1-2, and after those 3 games, still a lot of question marks, but kind of, I think, where we thought the Indians would be realistically after those 3 games, somewhere around 1-2, 2-1. And then you get into the Farmington Bluff conference slate. As much hype around the Cape Jackson game as we've seen in 6-8 years. So, yeah. And then probably going into that, a lot of people thought that would be the game of the year in Southeast Missouri.
Yeah. A lot of people thought it would definitely be a close one. A lot of people thought Cape had a good shot to win it, but
and then you get into second play of the game, I believe, Zaire Thomas, the long 70-yard touchdown run. Cape's up 6-0. We are actually right behind their student section. They're going crazy, and you're like, all right, this may be, a game. I think it's 7-6 after the first quarter. Yeah, it's a close game, and then Jackson just kind of runs away with it.
I wrote down, if you're talking about biggest moment of the year or whatever, like that game was the game, like you said. I mean, it was packed out. I mean, the game is always packed pretty much between Cape and Jackson. It's usually always a sellout. But I mean, it felt different from the Cape side. They really did. It really was like there was a genuine belief there, and you could feel it like in their crowd was there early. Their students were there very early. And yeah, that Thomas touchdown was, I can say from experience, I did used to have to go to a lot of Cape games when my wife does work at Cape Central. So I went to a lot of games with her, especially in some of the lean years. That was the loudest I've ever heard the stadium. That run, he crosses the goal line. I was like, I kind of had it in my brain. I was like, I mean, this is what they need to happen. Jackson go down early, big momentum play. I think the very next possession for Jackson was a turnover on downs, maybe, or a turnover of some kind. I was just like, I don't know, this is getting a little sketchy for the Indians. And then, like you said, it was it was never just like big play per se, but it was just like methodical, systematic, just Jackson just plugging away. And, what was it, 42-6, I think was the final. So
yeah, and then right before halftime, probably one of my favorite plays of the season, Parsons kind of over the shoulder, the far end zone, Crow goes up, gets it.
Absurd catch.
Puts Jackson up 21-6 there going into half, and that pretty much ended up being the key. But Jackson's defense, you mentioned holding those big plays. I mean, after the 70-yard explosive play to start, Jackson's defense came to play.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you look at, kind of Jackson's schedule. I mean, the defense was pretty nice. But like after those first couple games, they gave up 40 twice in the first 3 weeks. They always struggle with the triple option at Farmington. They gave up 35 there, and then they, 9, 6, 12, 14, 7 to end the regular season. Not bad for the Indians at all. And like you said, Kai Crow, that's another guy graduating on Jackson's side. Somebody that they're definitely going to miss. He really carried that passing game throughout a lot of the season until some of those younger guys kind of got their footing. He was phenomenal. He's going to be playing at the next level, and I'm going to miss seeing him out there. He was an awesome player. He did a lot for the Indians. He was a kicker. Went, I don't remember, like 5 for 5, 6 for 6, something like that. Field goals on the season. Never missed an extra point. Put it in the end zone anytime he wanted to on kickoff. So he's definitely going to be a big piece they're missing after this year. And then, a lot of other really, really good players. Been a fun run again. The Indians, you kind of expect it. They finished the year 9-3, and it's kind of wash, rinse, repeat a little bit for the Indians, but you can never take for granted kind of having, that success going up. Cody and I got to brave the cold up at Seckman another year, winning a district title. And, they played a really, really good game up at Kirkwood. That was a really fun game, high-scoring game. Ended up dropping that one to Kirkwood 45-35. And, that's kind of where the season ended, but that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing Jackson games this past year. Cody, how about you?
Yeah, big key. I mean, you mentioned a lot of cool moments there in the latter part of the season. Jackson debuted those red chrome helmets there. I think that was the Festus game. But yeah, the Lindbergh game wasn't easy.
No.
First game of district, 17-14 in the third quarter. Another key moment of the whole season. Parsons breaks that 70-yard run up the middle to give Jackson a 10-point lead there. But yeah, you mentioned Kirkwood. There was some questionable calls in that game, we'll say. But hey, you gotta fight through it and play. Give Coach Jeremy Macklin credit. I remember the going into halftime, Jackson gets a stop, makes it 4th and 8. You have the timeout, and then Coach Macklin chooses to go for it and gets the touchdown. Big moment in that game.
Huge.
But on the Jackson side, you get some All-State honors. Put that down here. Tyson Ford was second team. Missouri Football Coaches Association, Kai Crow, second team, Bryson Wessel, the O-line, third team. So
yeah, and Bryson Wessel will be back. He was a left tackle last year. He played both ways on the D-line as well. And I guess you might have seen he committed to Iowa State for defensive line is what the graphic said. So pretty cool moment for him. So don't worry about Jackson. They're not going to be losing too much. They're not going to be – I don't expect too much of a down season next year. Like I said, we'll get to what they look like next year eventually, but – yeah, I mean, look at the end of the year run. They played Festus the last game of the year. They went to the state title. They finished 11-3. Lindbergh won 8 games. Seckman won 10 games. Kirkwood won 9 games. So tough schedule for the Indians at the end of the year. And you have, I know we have coming up July 18th, I think, is the SEMO Ball Awards. Cody, you have the awards pulled up there for fall sports.
Yeah, since we just talked about football, Kai Crow on the Jackson side, offense. And then whenever you flip over to the defensive side, Tyson Ford from Jackson. Cape had Zaire Thomas on the offensive side also.
Yeah, makes sense. It'll be interesting who wins it. I feel like Zaire Thomas might end up being the one to win it if we had to guess there. But, yeah, a lot of football talk. Obviously, that is kind of the big sport. Obviously, in the fall, that is the big sport around the area, especially, as growing up in Jackson. Jackson definitely lives and breathes football, and so going to be a lot of the headlines. Excited to see, as we get down later in the summertime, we'll start previewing some of these teams, how they look going in the next season. Excited for that. Quickly, I do want to mention some of the other sports. Cody and I weren't doing this podcast during the fall, so we missed out on a lot of these sports, a lot of these moments. I'll just run through some of them here. Volleyball. Once again, kind of how it is for several sports, especially over on the girls' side. Jackson, kind of the class of Southeast Missouri in volleyball this past season. They won the SEMO Conference tournament for making up a number, I think like the 6th year, give or take, in a row. So they continue to really dominate the area. They went 33-7. They won their district. Lost to Lafayette. That's a monster. They'll just win state every single year. But a very good year for the Indians in volleyball. Cape Central went 24-9-3. Good season for the Tigers. They're led by big girl up front, Sydney Miller, going to SEMO. I saw she committed there not too long ago. One cool moment for them, they did beat Farmington, who's a very solid team in the area, for the first time since 2009 this season. So pretty impressive there for the Tigers. Saxony went 19-14. They played a tough schedule. They beat a couple of Final Four teams in smaller classes, Advance, St. Vincent. Notre Dame also went 24-9 and won, similar to Cape Central. They're another team, played a crazy schedule. They defeated the Class 3 state champs, Potosi, the Class 1 state champs, Winona, third place team in Class 2, St. Vincent, and the second place team in Class 1, Advance. So heck of a schedule for all the teams here in Southeast Missouri. I will say, maybe being a bit of a homer again, but like I said, Jackson 33-7. They beat everybody in Southeast Missouri. Hard to dispute. That was the most wins they had in program history. They had some big moments as well. They knocked off Incarnate Word at the Jackson tournament that they host, who's been a beast the last few years, won a couple state titles. And they also knocked off Corey Zoo in the district championship, which is notable because Corey Zoo had beaten Jackson the 6 previous times they played in the postseason. So a little bit of a monkey off the back there for the Indians. Skip down to boys soccer. Once again, Jackson, kind of the class of Southeast Missouri there in soccer. They went undefeated against Cape, Saxony, Notre Dame, beat Cape 4-0, Saxony 3-0, Notre Dame 6-0. And kind of the news of the year in soccer, Coach Zach Walton from Jackson is going to be retiring. One of the best coaches in Jackson history, without argument, really. He won a state title in soccer, first ever state title there. Won a state title in golf, same as well. 19 and 20, respectively, were the golf and soccer. And then, he was the one stat I saw that was crazy. Somebody put out when they won the state title was Jackson was the first team in the biggest classification outside of St. Louis or Kansas City to win a state title in soccer. So big time, career for Coach Walton. Best of luck to him in retirement. And then I think, Cody, you have it pulled up. The best moment I would say, would be Saxony knocking off Notre Dame 3-2.
Caden Harper did an article on best games of the year across all the sports, and he's got the Saxony beating Notre Dame 3-2. It was Saxony's first ever win over Notre Dame.
That was a crazy stat. I didn't know that. Yep. Yeah, first ever win for Saxony. I think they scored 2 goals in the last minute after Notre Dame went up with 5 minutes to go in the game. So they came away with a big win, and that was awesome. Once again, Braden Moore, who we'll talk about some more in baseball, got the goal there. So big time moment here in Southeast Missouri. Big historic moment there for the Crusaders. Continuing on, a lot of sports in the fall. Cross country on the boys' side, kind of the high finisher at state. Well, Notre Dame finished second as a team in cross country, and their freshmen, star freshman on cross country, track and field. Later we'll hear from Aiden Morris. He comes out as 6th in state in their classification, but best time out of anybody here. It kind of tells you the differences in maybe levels of different classifications when it comes to stuff like cross country. Aiden Ebalski from Jackson, he finished 52nd in state in Jackson's class, all right, 52nd, but he ran 16:16 in the 5K, which was actually 30 seconds faster than Aiden Morris, who got 6th in his class. So kind of a rough go for Aiden, having to be in the biggest class in the state. I looked, he would have finished top 3 in the next lower classifications in the state. So it is what it is. Girls cross country, similar deal. Notre Dame, very, very talented freshman there as well. Martina Ressel, she finished 4th. Her teammate Lily Coy came right behind her in 5th place. But then once again, maybe the high mark time-wise of the area, Annika Barks from Jackson comes in 12th at 8:32. So big-time showings for several kids, different schools here in the cross-country field. I know Barks, I think, is graduating, so we'll see where Ressel and Coy able to end up next year. On the boys' side, in swimming, fall, I put down one guy that you need to know. Great season, Phineas Thiel from Cape. He got 2 gold medals, broke a record in the 100 butterfly, got first in the 50 free. We got girls golf, the high finisher there for the Indians. Julia Schlitt got 2nd in state. Shot a 73 on the back 9, the best round either day by anybody. Ended up just one stroke short of first place, kind of stinks, but big time showing by Julia. She'll be back next year. Hopefully, maybe able to get that gold medal. We'll see. Notre Dame though did come in 2nd as a team. They had a couple of top 10 finishers as well. 2 more sports, Cody. 2 more sports here.
You got it.
Softball. Jackson, the class of the area again. They're 28-9. But we had 3 district champions. Saxony won districts in Class 3. Notre Dame won districts in Class 4. And then Jackson in Class 5. All won districts. They all got knocked out, though, immediately after that in, sectionals or quarterfinals, depending on the class. And then girls tennis, record-wise, Jackson ended up with the most wins. 16-4-1 was their final record as a team. Saxony went 14-4. Notre Dame 11-9-1. Cape 14-4 or 4-14. But Notre Dame sent 2 doubles teams to state tournament, so pretty cool for them. Sending a couple kids on to the state tournament. That pretty much wraps up the fall, like I said. Whew. Little breathe there. A lot of stuff going on in the fall. We'll get to cover more of that this year. We picked up doing this, Cody, I think around Christmas time. I think the first episode was previewing the Christmas tournament. So we missed out on a lot of that. Like I said, Cody and I were on the road during football season doing a lot of Jackson games. We were on the road a lot. I want to complain about how much we were on the road. I complained a lot during the season. Didn't get to on here. But we were busy doing that, so maybe we'll get to talk a little bit more about some of these fall sports coming up as we get into this next school year. I know all the kids listening don't want to talk about next school year yet. I feel that, but we can move on to the winter now. A little bit lower numbers of sports once you get to the winter. Obviously, basketball is the big breadwinner for most schools in Southeast Missouri as a whole. I would say, Cody, Southeast Missouri, I would argue, is probably a basketball region overall. A lot of schools don't have football, especially a lot of the small ones. So basketball definitely dominates a lot of talk in Southeast Missouri. For sure, and especially in our area, it just seems like the SEMO conference just keeps getting better and better. Great atmosphere. Yeah. I mean, we get to cover a lot of good basketball, and then you get into the Christmas tournament, which, you said was our first podcast. Always great teams and great environment there. Yeah, always big time. We'll start on the boys' side. 4 teams here in Cape County: Saxony, Notre Dame, Cape, Jackson. Varying levels of success. Year 1, Coach Scott, my former coach at Jackson, took over at Saxony. They went 7-18. And then Cody and I, we get the pleasure of doing Jackson ball games. Jackson had a good year, Cody, 21-7. Similar to football, maybe. I don't know. I might have been lower. I don't know. We'll say I might have been lower on basketball coming into it this past year because once again, they lost. I want to say 4 starters. They had Cole Deck coming back, who was obviously a stud the year before, All-State, 20 points a game. But I didn't know what to expect. We went into the tournament up at St. Francis Borgia, a lot of question marks. Yeah, they finished 19-10 the year before. We probably figured that would be about a similar record. Yeah. But Jackson comes out very strong start and did lose to Principia up there, but we knew Principia was going to be one of the best teams in the state. I don't think we knew how good they were even at that point. They ended up being, what was their final record? 31-1. Yeah, so, not bad. Yeah, pretty good. And then you get into conference tournament. Obviously, Cape defeats Jackson there, and then Jackson beats Notre Dame in our area.
And then,
And that really kicked off a big win streak for the Indians. Let's see if I think I wrote it down. I think it was 11 straight wins right there in that stretch, beating Notre Dame all the way until they played Cape in the regular season.
Yep.
Yeah. And then obviously, like we said, we started the podcast going into the Christmas tournament, which Cody and I got to do a lot of the games on the radio there as well. And I'd say it was a pretty good Christmas tournament. We going into it, similar situation. You and I didn't, we had a lot of question marks on how some of these teams would finish out. We knew that Woodland and Scott City were both really, really good small schools. And so, I was a little bit worried about Jackson going into kind of the semifinals there against the Rams.
Yeah, you talk about Scott City could beat them. I mean, not as deep, but a very good team. And then you even on the Woodland side, hey, Woodland Cape Central could be a good matchup. We it's hard not to figure that Charleston is not going to play for a championship over there. So you always got a lot of them included also.
Yeah. And it was, maybe, we can keep talking more about Jackson, but the Christmas tournament championship, Dem and Cape, they'd already played once earlier in the year. Felt like a little bit lower stakes, even though it was to get into the championship of the SEMO Conference tournament. It didn't feel like either team really knew who they were, where they were at. I don't think a lot of the fans were super believing yet for either team at that point. There was not the crowd per se up down there at Sykeston yet. And Cape did come up with a close victory. It was close to out. But then the Christmas tournament, it really felt like it was turned up to 11. That championship game, Cape and Jackson get there. And, Jackson had not won one since 2014. And that was a huge environment. There was a ton of people there. We just saw an awesome third-place game between Scott City and Woodland. And, nobody knew how it was going to go, per se, in the championship. And Jackson, they played their game. They played the way they wanted to play. It was 50-41. Cold deck, led them in scoring. And Jackson was able to win it, get their first championship in 2014. So that was a pretty big moment, pretty fun time. Like I said, the place was packed over at SEMO. That was big moment A, and then leading up into big moment B in their rematch later on.
Right. Yeah. You talk about Coach Frazier, Coach Doma. It's going to be a defensive game. Yeah. Defense wins. We come down to the very end of the Christmas tournament championship. Jackson gets a couple of big stops and then a huge steal and secures that victory. Probably my favorite game of the whole year right there.
Yeah, no, that was an incredible game. It was so much fun. Like you said, just very defensive, and it just felt like every possession really mattered as that game was going on. Yep. Then you have the rest of Jackson's season pulled up there. You can continue talking about them. They kept winning after that game. They played a lot of decent teams down the stretch, and I was pretty impressed with how Jackson was able to close out most of that regular season.
Yeah, very good.
Heading into the postseason, but. We'll get to the postseason here in a minute. They did have one kryptonite in their life, which was Seckman in the regular season. That was kind of the ugliest game per se. It was a close game, but it was still kind of ugly in its own way.
Yeah, Jackson, you mentioned it, reeled off 11 in a row. Farmington, Kennett, Hillsborough, Bluff. Then they get that home game against Cape Central, 1-1 against each other on the season. A lot of hype going into that one. You saw the Christmas tournament, 1st to 50 kind of wins. Yeah. This game kind of the same way, very defensive-oriented, defensive mindset. And, Cape Central gets the better of Jackson at third place, 48-42.
And then Jackson, that was another – like I said, that'd be game of the year B, at least for Jackson. Cape goes and it was packed out. The event center at Jackson was packed out. It was a big-time atmosphere. It was really, really loud. You and I were right next to the Cape Central student section. They were fired up. And so that was a great game. Cape coming away, winning the season series 2-1. We'll talk a little bit more about Cape here in a minute. But then Jackson, I thought, did a good job. Played some pretty good teams after that and was able to bounce back and get a few victories.
Yeah, we were surprised. The game at Ladue, Jackson escapes out of there with a 6-point victory. And then you had back-to-back overtime games. Jackson beats Charleston in overtime and loses to Webster Groves in overtime.
Yeah. Don't want to be too dramatic, but the Webster Groves game really killed me. I said this to Coach Brownsberger, I think when we interviewed him a couple months ago. I was like, Coach, the only thing I want at this point is to beat Webster Groves. We knew Webster Groves was awesome. They have Scotty Atkinson, who's the Missouri Player of the Year. They won a state title in the end. They got another kid that's going to be a 4 or 5 star. Was a freshman this past year. But Jackson, we've lost to them so many times by just like single digits. And it just like, I thought this was the moment. And then, of course, Scotty Atkinson, buzzer beater at the rim.
All because that out of bounds spot.
It was the out of bounds spot. I'm gonna start submitting video to the Misha officials. No. This might be the last time I complain about it, so I need to get out. No, I'm lying. When Cody and I do the Webster Groves game next year, I'll complain about it in the pregame there. If anybody wants to listen to that. If you miss Caleb complaining, you get more of that next season. Don't worry. Then closing out the year, Jackson, a very tough schedule to close the season. We mentioned Webster Groves, the best team in the state, probably regardless of class. Sykeston at Sykeston. Sykeston blew them out for the definitive SEMO Conference Championship regular season-wise. Sykeston coming away there. And then Jackson hosted Seckman, which we could kind of assume was going to be a preview of a game they'd probably play in districts. Ugly game. I wasn't there. I'm very thankful I wasn't there. It was a 9-point game, but it felt like the Jackson had no chance of ever overcoming the deficit they were in before losing to that one. Seckman, good team. Kind of a tough style to play against, maybe for the Indians who play big guys, and Seckman really a true 5-out team. Made things really difficult for the Indians, but very frustrating game. And then what was almost my moment of the season for Jackson was in districts playing Seckman again, rematch. Jory Toma. Step back or shot fake, let the guy go flying, 3 at the buzzer to tie the game, to send it to overtime. After Jackson was down by like 17 or something like that. That was almost my moment of the year. If like 5 minutes later, Seckman didn't immediately like start overtime and go on an 8-0 run or something, then just rip my heart out there at St. Louis University High School.
Yeah, still a very good play, poised to let the defender fly by and make the shot. And all the fans in front of us, we were right behind the Jackson section there going crazy.
Yeah. And then that's going to be a guy I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit more of next year for Jackson. He's going to be the guy, at the guard spot for the Indians. They're losing a lot. Once again, they're going to lose several starters. Cold Deck All-State again this year. He'll be graduating, losing most of the front court rotation. Criddle, Thompson, Ivy all graduating. Colton Toma graduating. And Gavin Allspaw going to be graduating as well. So Indians going to be losing a lot from this past year's team. It was a good group, fun group. Most of them were young, didn't really play much back when Jackson went to the Final Four. But the last couple of years, they really showed out well and played well. A lot of them stepped into big roles this past year, and it was definitely fun to watch, fun to be there. Like I said, every single game we were there and saw them all. So, very, very fun group to watch over the last several years. Getting to Cape. Cape had a weird year, 18-8. Another, big question mark in the way of a coaching change. Drew Church been at Cape for almost 20 years. He stepped down, kind of focus on, job, family, all that stuff. And they hired Lamont Frazier, Charleston legend, played at Mizzou. Coached a bunch of different places, had been around the area, Southeast Missouri, was in Arkansas when he got hired, and didn't know what to expect. Cape, they lost some studs to graduation. They lost Marquell Murray to Sykeston, and so there was a lot of question marks. We knew some of the guys. Tyshandre Edwards was definitely a beast. We knew he was going to be the guy. The backcourt, Mateo Rivers had been good, but he'd been a backup guard, so he's going to be stepping into a big role. Marquay Mills was hurt all last season, or the season before, so it was kind of like, what's he going to be able to do this season? There was a lot of guys, once again, that were going to be stepping into big roles, similar to the Indians, and I said it was a little bit bumpy, you could say, to start. They lost a game up at DeSoto that kind of surprised some people, I think. It might have been for the best, because that way they didn't have to play Sykeston in the championship game. To see them that early was not very fun, but they really rounded into a good form. We mentioned earlier, SEMO Conference tournament. They beat Charleston game 1. They played Jackson in the semis, won that close. And then, like I said, they had to play Sykeston at Sykeston, and it did not go well. I got to call that game with Ryan Winkler, who does Cape games. It was not fun to call. I guess as a semi-neutral observer. After just getting done doing Jackson's game, it was like, all right, I'm just going to sit here and write down the score and try not to be any more negative than it was. Cape played a tough schedule. Sykeston, they played at Farmington, who was a state-ranked team. Then we talked about, they went to the Christmas tournament, Cody, and I was pretty impressed at how they played in the Christmas tournament. They really took care of business up to the Jackson game.
Yeah, we talked about the semifinal against Woodland. Hey, this is going to be a good game. Woodland can hang with you. They like to get up and down, and they beat them by 16 going into the Jackson game, kind of similar to football. They have all the momentum. They've already beaten Jackson this year, and only 3 losses going into that game for Cape. And it turned out to be a very good game, as we talked about. Yeah,
I'm not trying to get too granular here as we're doing. We're going to be talking about a lot of sports over the next few minutes, but Jackson, I think, did a good job in that game making Tyshandre Edwards uncomfortable, which is what you had to do, against Cape. He was the guy on offense. He can score at all 3 levels really well, but Jackson made him force a lot of tough shots off the dribble, especially, they really made him into a 3-point shooter, which is maybe where he's most uncomfortable. Still a good 3-point shooter, but it was what they needed to do to get that win. But they turned around. I'll say after that, Cape had a really good stretch there where, we said they won the first 3 games of the Christmas tournament, and then they went on a nice, 9-game win streak or so there.
Yeah, and we talked about that Christmas tournament being a big game. I mentioned Caden's article earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The game coming up, they do play at Scott City, which has probably been a long time since they played at Scott City.
Yeah.
Me and Caleb actually had the honor of calling that game on the radio also. Very good game. Could have went either way. The entire fourth quarter, back and forth, and Cape does win by 2 down at the Rams place.
Yeah, that was a very fun game. That was an awesome game, and yeah, like you said, sorry Ryan, we lucked into getting a call that. I think Ryan was sick, but we showed up down there, called that. I didn't know what to expect. We knew Scott City was really good. We don't talk about Scott City a lot on this show, but across the board in sports this past year, really, really nice season for the Rams. A lot of talented players basketball wise, a good senior class, obviously led by Kobe Watson. In that game, he did everything for him. He was making everything. Right. He was scoring inside, outside, which, he's a big body kid, but I was really impressed with the way he played in that one. And yeah, it was as close as you can get. I think he made a 3 to tie it.
Yeah, Kobe Watson makes
you remember
a 3.
You remember this very intimately here, Kobe.
Yeah, and then Coach Danny Mueller down at Scott City decides to call timeout, sets up a play for Cape Central to come down. And yeah, I actually called it. Luckily, in the timeout, said, "Hey, you have to crash the boards, offense and defense." A lot of times when a player gets amped up like this and is going full speed, misses the layup, and that's exactly what happened. Edwards was there for the putback.
Yep.
And Cape Central win that by 2.
Yeah,
one of the games of the year.
That was an awesome moment. And then, like we said, immediately after that, they went to Jackson, got another big victory. They were winning big games, at Scott City, at Jackson. They beat a good Hillsboro team, beat Poplar Bluff. And then the big one for me on the weekend, they played Jeff City, who was coming off a trip to the Final Four the year before. I'm at a loss for their names, but they had a couple kids coming back that were really, really good players. And I didn't really know which way it was going to go. Jeff City ended up being a 20-win team. Cape was able to suffocate them on defense, which is, like you said earlier, that was kind of Lamont Frazier's MO this season coming into it. And it felt like around the Christmas tournament is when they really, really got a hold of that defensive mindset. Because, you just look at these games after they lost to Jackson, 36 points, 33, 51 against Scott City was the most by far, 42, 40, 35, 34, just incredible defense. And then unfortunately, they went up to the CBC, and in that game, Tyshandre Edwards got injured. And, it kind of coincided. Unfortunately, he gets hurt. Obviously, humongous loss for them. He's a 20-point-per-game kid. But even worse, they played just a crazy schedule down the stretch, Cody. If there was any time that Tyshandre Edwards could not miss in the season, it had to be that last third of the year.
Yeah, so you finish after that game, you finish 4-4 the rest of the way. And yeah, without Edwards, you figure that you were going to run into Sykeston at some point once again, being in your district, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, look at CBC, Principia, Sykeston twice to end the year. Brutal end. Schedule-wise for Cape, like I said, I don't know how different it might have been if Edwards was healthy, but definitely made some of these games a lot tougher for sure. So good year overall for the Tigers. Had a lot of fun keeping up with them, watching their ball games. Got to call, like I said, a couple of them. A lot of fun there. And
they lose quite a bit.
They're going to lose a lot. They're losing the whole backcourt, right? Rivers and Mills, by the way, I mentioned that earlier. They're both stepping into new roles. Mateo Rivers played really well. He was maybe the toughest defensive guard in this whole SEMO conference. That third matchup against Jackson, I mean, he made Koldeck's life miserable in that ball game. He was up in him, 6-inch height difference, but he could not get anywhere on Rivers. Marquez Mills kind of really surprised me. All-around game. He was a good shooter. Incredible athlete. Threw down some nasty dunks. I think he had a nasty dunk in that game against Scott City we called. A really, really good player. I was impressed with him. But yeah, like you said, they lose quite a bit of guys. They have some guys coming back, but they're definitely losing the backcourt, which is going to be tough. And then I mentioned earlier, Saxony, a little bit of a slow year, 7-18. Kind of struggled throughout, but it's going to be a lot of guys coming back next season. I think they're going to have a much improved year next year, year two under Coach Scott. And then Notre Dame is kind of the last one I really wanted to get to. They, once again, had an up and down season. It was definitely they finished 14-14, just 500. And it did kind of feel like it broke up pretty easily of the games that they should win, they did win, and the games that, thought they probably were not the favorite in, they didn't win. So, throughout the year, it was kind of that way. Maybe, losing at Charleston was just early in the year. That was kind of a surprise, but conference tournament, they struggled against Sykeston. Everybody did. And then they lost to Jackson there in the third place game. And then, Cody, in a weird way, kind of the most impressive part for Notre Dame at times was, which sounds bad, it's, moral victory, yada, yada. But like the teams that they lost a lot of close games to, really good teams at times throughout the year, which kind of just stinks that they, didn't come up on the winning side of those. But they played well at times against some really, really good competition.
Yeah, even there at the beginning, right before the Christmas tournament when they played Sykes, and that was a single-digit game. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, that was eye-opening. Hey, maybe Notre Dame's going to turn it around, have a great year. And with them being in Class 4 that they're able to do so.
Yeah. And they played in, no offense, maybe the worst game of basketball I've ever watched in my entire life. We'll say it was the greatest defensive matchup of all time against Charleston in the, would that be the fifth place game? We'll say it was the greatest showing of defense in the history of basketball. 39-26 was the final. Cody and I had the pleasure of calling that game. I don't know. Both teams shot like 10% from the field. Tough watch.
It was not great. To say, understand. They did, Notre Dame, the bright spot, hold Charleston without a field goal in the third quarter.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, good defense, brutal offense also. Good defense, though. Keep saying good defense. Good defense. But then, like I said, they had a tough schedule, throughout the season. They played pretty good teams. They went over to Nixa, which is loaded with teams. They struggled over there a little bit, lost 2 one-possession games. Came back, like I said, is the story of the year at times is like almost beating some good teams, right? They played Woodland, lost by 4 there. They played St. Francis Borgia, lost in overtime by 1. A kid who I don't even know if hit a shot all game, made a 3 to win it right in front of the bench over there, brutal. And then Farmington, another state ranked team all year, lost that by 10 the last game of the season. It was close. It was single digits all game long. But, they took care of business where they needed to, right? They beat, looking at just the end of the year, they beat Malden, they beat Saxony, they beat Hillsborough. Good team. They won at Poplar Bluff, which is kind of impressive to me. They won by 20 over at Bluff. They blew out Dexter in the regular season.
And maybe a trap game there, February 25th at home against Dexter. Dexter, another 500 team. But yeah, they win by 24, and I'm talking to a few of the parents that week after, and you're hearing a lot of, man, I hope the kids don't fall into this. We're going to have to play Dexter.
And what did they do, Cody?
And then, it struggled on offense again there in the Dexter game, lost by 2 in the district tournament.
Yeah, brutal. it was, it felt like, I mean, the district tournament, you look at their tournament back then, it's kind of going off memory. It was like they were 500, Dexter was 500, Fredericktown was 500, Kennett was 500. So it was open for business for sure, for them to win it, and just a tough loss to Dexter there. It felt like a Chad Allen special, right? Like, I mean, you knew he was just going to drag them into the mud, and that's what happened. Dexter won 37-35. And it was a big end to an era over at Notre Dame, Cody. I want to talk about a team that loses a lot. They lost an entire varsity roster full of kids to graduation going in, or to end the season. A lot of kids that, you've heard for a long time, heard their names and kind of heard, some of their accolades. I think 10 kids graduate. I'm going to do it here. We're going to go whole list. Hunter Bonham, Ryan Boswell, Brett Dohan, Zach Eftink, Brody Harden, Colton Johnson, Logan Londaway, Trenton Schumacher, Hayden Steinley, Will Henry Stewart. That's just the seniors that were on the team. They're all going to be graduating. Like I said, a lot of these guys, good careers. Schumacher, Londaway, a couple of guys that have just been on the varsity, been starting now for 2-3 years. And then obviously kind of the big two on the team, Colton Johnson, Brett Dohan moving on, the inside-outside duo. Sad to see him go. It's been a lot of fun watching him play a lot of ball games the last few years. Dohan reached that 1,000-point mark in his career. One of the best post players in Southeast Missouri, especially just when it comes to practical skill standpoint. I mean, he was a post-scoring machine. Made things very, very tough on defenses. And Colton Johnson broke every, three-point shooting record there is at Notre Dame. He was over 1,000 points in his career, broke the single game 3-point record. I think he made 10 in that Malden game. Broke the career makes record as a junior, I believe. So a big time career for those two kids and everybody else coming to an end. So I've seen them a couple times this summer. They look pretty good. You and I have seen some of their younger guys, their freshmen, play a lot of games. You doing parochial league games, me working the Sportsplex for so long. Like I said, we'll get to, previews one day, but I'm pretty optimistic about the future. It might take a little bit of time, take some maturing and stuff, but I do like some of the young guys.
A lot of times whenever you're losing 10 seniors, you're like, well, this team's not going to be good for a year or two. They have to rebuild. Where's the scoring going to come from? Not the case with this team. St. Mary, St. Vincent, all those parochial schools, as you mentioned over there, bring up some good kids. So
yeah, for sure. We'll jump over to, we'll just stay with basketball, girls basketball. We got 4 teams again. Once I said Saxony, Cape, Notre Dame, Jackson. Jackson, definitely the class of Southeast Missouri, and especially our county here, but all of SEMO. They finished 25-2. And then Notre Dame and Cape, pretty similar there, 13-15, Cape 12-15. And then Saxony, tough year, another team that really was, kind of leaned on a lot of young girls. They only finished with 3 wins on the season, but it is a team I'm expecting a lot of next year. I like what I saw out of Kinsey Keys, another girl who I saw a lot at the Sportsplex over the years. She was only a freshman. She averaged, I think it was 15 points, 4 assists, 6 rebounds, 7 rebounds, 3 steals a game as a 9th grader. So big future out of her. Excited to see where they're going to be next year. I think they're going to be improved. 3 wins, definitely tough to live through, I'm sure, for those girls, but definitely a good building block for them in the future. Cody, you got Jackson's schedule pulled up, 25-2 on the season. I love this team. They were so much fun to watch, and you look at it, 1 regular season loss, and just a really, really tough schedule from that St. Vincent loss throughout, the back half of that season, Cody. It was a tough schedule, and then, it was against early on, they were really just running over teams.
Yeah, you talk about a 25-2 schedule. A lot of times you'd look at that and say, well, they really didn't play anybody. Well, in this case, they played some pretty good teams. St. Vincent finished the season 27-4.
And lost in the state championship?
Yeah. So MICDS, an 8-loss team. Francis Howe was 24-5. Principia 26-6.
Doniphan were state champions.
Yeah,
they lost 2 games.
Yeah, you go down. They beat Doniphan, who's 29-2.
Yeah,
and then of course you get into the Corjesu. Very great 2 games there.
Yeah.
But yeah, couldn't ask for more out of a team.
Yeah, a lot of fun. This is a team I watched a lot just because, early on I hadn't once again, I said it a bunch of times about a lot of these teams. I had a lot of question marks about Jackson. They had a lot of really young girls going to be playing big roles, so I didn't know what to expect. They had Cameron Alsdorf back. She's going to be a senior. I knew she'd been a stud in the last couple of years for them, and up until that point though, a lot of these girls had proved a lot on the varsity. I knew Kate Deck, her brother Cole, we had seen. Her and some of these other girls are, like I mentioned, I've seen them at the Sportsplex playing when they're in like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and they're playing older kids a lot and they're doing really, really well, but you never know how it's going to translate. And then, from off rip, it translated pretty well. Like you said, they went into the SEMO conference tournament. And I'm like, hey, I know they're going to play Notre Dame in the championship probably. What's that going to look like? Because Notre Dame, who did lose a lot, we'll talk about more, but they lost a lot from the year before. But Notre Dame had been kind of in that upper echelon for a long, long time. And then Jackson beat them by 30 in the championship of the SEMO conference tournament. So I was like, oh, okay. So like this is what they're doing. And they played St. Vincent, just absolute stranglehold by St. Vincent. Held Jackson to 33 points on the big stage there at the Show Me Center. Once again, another team that went to the state title game and lost. But then Jackson responded. They went undefeated the rest of the regular season after that and didn't play, nobody. They played, at Farmington, who's been a solid team for a long time. Beat Park Hill Central, who's coming off of a Final Four run. And like you said, some of these other teams. I mean, I just saw a girl in my CDS was playing for Team USA, like under 17 team the other day. Pretty good team. Beat them in overtime. Like you said, Francis Howell beat all these teams. It was impressive. I mean, picking a moment would be tough. I mean, I would probably say winning at Doniphan. Definitely not, the biggest team classification wise. They did, but they went on to win a state title. That's a team that had beaten Jackson the last few years pretty handily. And, incredible team, obviously. Once again, this season, Jackson had to go to Doniphan. Played really, really well throughout. The whole team stepped up when they needed. Alsdorf, Deck, Addison Henderson played really, really well. They made every free throw in the game and, came up with a big win there. It was really impressive. Double overtime win at Corey Zoo. That was another Kate Deck special, just hitting crazy shots. I think she had an and 1-3 to tie the game or something. It was absurd. It was an insane performance by her. And then, you remember a lot of seasons by how they end. And unfortunately, Class 6, District 1, Jackson steamrolled their way to the championship. You knew they were going to be seeing Corey Zoo again. And it just felt like shots just wouldn't go in. I watched every second of the game. There was nothing really bad that they did. They didn't play poorly on defense. They didn't rebound poorly. But the ball just didn't go in. It felt like for a long time there was long stretches of just no points for the Indians. And it wasn't like they were just getting shut down by Corey Zoo either. A lot of good looks just didn't go in. And unfortunately, that's how it works. Basketball, get to the postseason, have one bad day, and the season's over with. So
yeah, and a lot of times, just like we've seen in years past, you knew kind of the winner of that game was probably going to the state semifinals, which Correzu ended up doing, defeating Marquette handily. So sometimes that's how it works out. You knew that game was kind of to go to state, and a little bit of added pressure there, but shots just didn't fall.
Yeah. And, they're losing a little bit. I mentioned Cameron Alsdorf, kind of the leader of the team, the senior leader, had been kind of the big dog the last couple of years on that team, averaged 15 points a game or so the last few years. She's moving on. Emmy Gross, and then everybody contributed. They had 4 seniors that were all big parts of the rotation. Emmy Gross is graduating. Addison Criddle is graduating, good guard off the bench. And Lily Cole, same thing, really, really good defensive guard and good shooter off the bench as well. So they're losing some good contributors, a lot of points, some good defense. But man, just so many young kids coming back on that team. So many freshmen that played a lot. And I'll also say a lot of really good freshmen moving up as well. The JV team was insane. I mean, they were blowing people out all year long. They are going to move up a few girls that I've seen this year that are probably going to be moving up to play some more varsity. But I don't know. I was very impressed with how the whole program looks right now and kind of where the future is going for them. So excited to see that. Looking at the rest of the schools, I mentioned Saxony, tough year, 3 wins. I'm not going to dwell on dwell on that too long for them. Notre Dame, they hovered around 500 most of the season, finished 13-15. The story going into it, they lose 3 D1 basketball players transferring out. I don't know. It is what it is. So that's going to affect any team pretty negatively. They play a very, very tough schedule. A lot of teams that they've been playing over the last few years because they are a team that, definitely expecting to go on a deep run. And, you're playing a lot of these really, really tough teams. You lose 3 D1 basketball players. Might be a little bit tougher without them. They beefed up the schedule. Cardinal Ritter, very good team. Nixa, very good team. Francis House Central. You had Jorge Zoo, St. Charles, or Lutheran St. Charles, excuse me. All very, very good teams. Teams making deep playoff runs. Teams with a lot of girls going to be playing high-level D1 basketball. And then, you have really, really talented girls. And when you're a private school, you start having success in lower classifications, you get bumped up. Yep. Notre Dame, definitely, earned it in a way, but they moved up to Class 6, District 1, which feels kind of tough. Like they are, probably a Class 4 school, I guess, size-wise. So having to move up 2 classes, kind of a brutal break for them. They won their first game in districts, beat Oakville, but then they had to face off against Jackson again, and that did not go well for the Bulldogs. But good season overall. A lot of girls stepped up. They're going to be losing a decent amount to graduation as well. Some really good seniors that stepped up well, played good all season long. Olivia Wagner in the post and Liza Barnett in the post, really, really good. Especially Barnett, she balled out down the stretch, double-double just about every game. Even in, the Jackson game to close the year, the final score looked really rough. Both games, like the last 2 games, they played Jackson twice in like a week, but it looked rough. But both games, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But first half of each of them were very, very close, back and forth. I think Notre Dame might have even led in the regular season game. I don't remember exactly, but good year for the Bulldogs. Skylar Kraft, Maddie Erbst, Aubrey Kieran all graduating. So a good senior class, but some good players coming back. Mia Panton I liked this past year over the last couple seasons, seeing her play. I'm pretty optimistic about the Bulldogs, see where they end up. Obviously, I do expect Jackson to kind of lead the way again next year, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You got Cape. You have Cape's schedule pulled up. They're another team, new leadership there. Coach Summer McCauley Purdue taking on basketball and volleyball coaching over at Cape Central. Year 1 for her. A lot of, a little bit of turnover and a lot of, question marks for her coming in. I saw her say, hey, this might be a tough first year, some rebuilding going on. Yep. But, overall, not a bad season for the Tigers, Cody. Yeah,
they had 3 seniors and 2 juniors. Anytime you start with that, your underclassmen are going to have to chip in. But whenever they finish 12 and 15, you go down through their schedule, and, they started, a little rocky. But, hey, they play some Meridian. They play quite a few Illinois schools, Alton, Illinois, and that Southern Illinois series. But you start 3-3 and kind of back and forth, just how kind of Notre Dame boys we talked about were back and forth throughout the year. They had a tough stretch there going into the new year where they played some more, Mount Vernon, Carterville, Cairo, Illinois. Yeah. But, hey, took care of business. They had some games against the Kellys. Notre Dame kind of put it on them there.
But they ended the year pretty well, picking up some wins that surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, you get into February, they play Cairo again and beat them by 30. They beat Kennett, who's about a 500 team.
That was a surprising win. Good win over Kennett.
Yeah, and then a 3-point win over Dexter.
That was a big one. Yeah, that surprised me too. Dexter,
some eyebrows.
They're a 500 team as well, and Woodland, 15-win team. 2 teams that are good, though, and I was kind of impressed. It kind of showed the growth that they had throughout the year.
Woodland girls are good. Sykeston girls were good. We talk about getting into the district tournament. You figure one and done. They play a 20-5 going into that game, finished 20-6 Festus team.
Yeah.
And beat them by 6.
I said, not to be whatever, Cape did finish below 500, but that was a crazy win. I think Festus was the 2 seed. I'm pretty sure. I think it was a 2-7 game, which you never see going the 7 seeds way. I mean, honestly, most of these, it was a competitive district. I mean, Cape being the 7 seed out of 8 teams is pretty tough when they are a 500 team. You see a lot of those 8-team districts, the 7 and 8 seeds are winning 4 or 5 games. Cape was a solid team, but beating Festus, that kind of really shocked me. It was at Cape, I know, and then they hung with Farmington, made it tough. Ultimately dropping there against Farmington late, and once again, no moral victories, yada yada. But good season for Cape, good end for them. You mentioned 3 seniors, definitely impactful seniors. Delay of furlough, coach's kid, be moving on, playing volleyball, I believe, at the next level. And Brooklyn Moss, good basketball player. A lot of improvement over her career. She's going to be playing at Moberly next season, so that's pretty cool to see for her. And then, a lot coming back, a lot to be optimistic about. Abby Davenport had a good season. Jamie Dawson-Ide, really, really good player for them. A couple of all-conference nods. And also Jamie, very good multi-sport athlete. So very good season, though, overall for them. Pretty impressed over on the girls' side. So we will jump into a couple more winter sports, something we mentioned briefly during the regularly scheduled filming of the podcast. Looking over at girls swimming, very, very big sport at Cape Central. A lot of really good athletes over the years there, and no exception this past season. They come in second as a team at the state meet, and led by a freshman, Carson McAllister, gets a championship in the 50 free. So big-time athlete. She also got 4th in the 100 backstroke. Sydney Ringwald, a senior, on her way out, got 3rd in the 50 free, 3rd in the 100 free. They won the 200 relay or 200 freestyle relay champs. They got 2nd in the 400 freestyle. So pretty good showing by Cape Central. They only took, I think, 4, maybe 5 girls total to the state meet. So coming in 2nd as a team, pretty big deal for them. And then over at Jackson, kind of the other high finisher in Southeast Missouri, Ava Walters got 3rd in 100 backstroke. So pretty good swimming in the area. Obviously, Cape Central, kind of the class in boys and girls. Over the years, boys have won a ton of state titles under Coach Powell. So good programs, and excited to see Carson McAllister kind of keep it going over the next few years. We have wrestling, the other main sport, Southeast Missouri in the wintertime. Kind of a thing's dominated by Jackson. Wrestling in particular feels like, on the boys' side especially. Jackson sent several kids up to the state meet. They had 4 kids finish in top 6. Grady Rice got 6th place at 120. Cade King got 3rd at 132, so he's the best finisher out of the 4. Joe Moore got 4th at 175. And then Bryson Wessel, who we mentioned, all-state offensive lineman, got 4th at 285. Kind of continuing his really show of dominance as far as being a multi-sport athlete goes. So tough kid. And on the girls' side, somebody, a new sport for girls in Misha. Been about 4 or 5 years now since it became a sport. Kaylee Milam, Jackson, got 2nd, 200 in the 110-pound weight class. So the highest finisher for the Indians overall, and absolute beast. I mean, the one thing I remember about Kaylee was her showing at the SEMO conference meet in her weight class. It was something ridiculous. Like, she spent a total of 3 minutes on the mat total to sweep her way to a championship. So that's pretty much it for winter sports. Cody, you got we talked about earlier, SEMO Ball Awards. What do we got for some of the winter ones here?
Yeah, just kind of those schools that we cover here off of Exit 99, if you will. But yeah, whenever you get into boys basketball, obviously Cole Deck from Jackson is a finalist there. And the girls basketball side, you have Cameron Allstorff from Jackson.
I think Colton Johnson was a finalist for boys too.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Is he on there?
Boys
yeah,
basketball.
he was.
Colton Johnson from Notre Dame.
It's gonna be tough. Cody, what do you think? You think PJ Farmer's gonna win it?
Yeah, Sykeston.
I think PJ Farmer. I think PJ. I think he's the best basketball player. I think Landon Burchard made it to the Final Four for the boys' side. Corbin Kinder made it to the Final Four. I think it's going to be PJ Farmer, though, if I had to make a prediction. Girls' side, you got both Rubles on there, which might split the vote a little bit. Jade Berry over at Delta, they didn't make it to the Final Four, but she had been to 3 Final Fours, I think, or something like that in her career. Is the all-time leading scorer at Delta. Her stats were bananas by the end of her career. I might give it to her. Carson Haygood at Doniphan, leading them to a state title.
Yep.
Definitely a good case. So we'll see what happens. Boys wrestling for the SEMO Ball Awards. I don't want to be a homer once again, but it is kind of the Jackson Invitational.
Yep.
Who's all on there from the Indians?
Yeah, you have Cade King from Jackson, Bryson Wessel from Jackson, Grady Rice from Jackson, Joel Moore from Jackson, none of which, I might add, are seniors.
Yeah.
So all 4 of them finalists.
The program's going to be all right, I think, again next year.
They should be good next year.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess King finished the highest out of them. So, I mean, it's just kind of what your flavor of the week is. I mean, all these kids are studs. Connor Poole over at Cape, a junior, going to be back next year. Cole Williams, a senior from Notre Dame, on there as well. So it'll be interesting. On the girls' side, it is Kaylee Milam from Jackson, the lone Indian. Zoe Freeman from Poplar Bluff might be the winner. I think she's 4 straight SEMO conference championships or something like that. But Kaylee did finish higher than her at the state meet. So we'll see what the judges say. And then you got swimming. I assume it's going to be. I would have to assume it's going to be one of the Cape girls. Are they both on there as well?
Yep.
McAllister and Ringwald.
Correct.
And Ava Walters, Lindley Laval from Jackson. So good crew. I mean, Carson McAllister getting on there as a finalist as a freshman, but also winning a state title as a freshman. So big time stuff for her. She might be the favorite. I might have to lean her there, winning the award. So is that it for wintertime, Cody?
There you go. Springtime
we can jump into. Springtime once again, gonna wear me out here. A lot of sports going on. We'll start. We'll work our way up, I believe. I will start with boys tennis is in the spring. Pretty good showings out of the tennis teams in the area. Just team record wise, Jackson most went 9-3. Notre Dame 7-3. Cape 7-7. But Notre Dame did send Matthew Austin, who, speaking of the SEMO Ball Awards, I think is up for Scholar Athlete of the Year award. I'll be honest, I don't know about any of the other kids. I don't know anything about most of them or what they do academically, but I do know this kid got a 36 on his ACT, Cody. 36 on his ACT, I think should automatically give you the award. That's just my biased opinion. He's also going to Northwestern. Kid's smarter than me, and better at tennis than me. He went to the state meet for singles. That was actually what I was getting to that was my point. But went to the state meet for singles, kind of the lone guy from our area to do so. And yeah, went there a couple times in his career, going to be graduating. Went for doubles last year, so good career. And one of the few times the kid going to state, you're like even better in the classroom than he is on the tennis court. So shout out to Matthew. Boys golf, pretty good showings by all teams in Southeast Missouri throughout the year. They were pretty competitive. Jackson, at least in our county, was the best overall. Poplar Bluff had a crazy team. I mean, they were insane. But being biased against them and not talking about them anymore. Jimmy Williams from Jackson won the single or whatever the individual championship of the SEMO conference, which is a huge moment. I think that was another one on the list, isn't it?
Yep.
On the Caden Carper's list of top moments, Southeast Missouri, his SEMO conference showing. Yeah, I mean, big time stuff out of Jimmy. You have the story over there.
Yeah, he had a 5 years removed from a life-saving heart transplant, but it actually came down to a one-hole playoff, and he wins down at Foxhaven in Sykeston.
Yeah, I think he beat a couple of those kids from Poplar Bluff too. Yep. So big time stuff out of him. Looking at the state tournament, the high finisher in the area, Bryce Gabler from Saxony, actually finished 10th in Class 2. Some of the Indians golfers had a tough go at the state tournament. The conditions might not have been optimal there, but Marshall Earnhardt Clements finished 19th for the Indians, kind of their high finisher over there in Class 5. Also in Class 5, you have some crazy competition up there. So big time stuff. Out of golf, a lot of good golfers, like I said. A lot of them going to be graduating, but excited to see some of the kids coming back like Jimmy Williams, see if he's able to bounce back, have a little bit better of a year next year, see where he can finish in the state tournament. We'll mention, let's see where I want to go. I will go to girls soccer. There's going to be a broken record here. Jackson, kind of the class of Southeast Missouri. Another team under new management, Coach Mack, moving on. had led them for many, many years, close to 20 years as well. Handed over the reins to Caleb Besink, who's an assistant, and kind of picked up where they left off, 15-4. Good team, quite a few seniors on that squad. Maya Domian, definitely the class of the team, getting a all-state nod now. I believe the third all-state accolade of her career. So great year for her. 15-4. They dominated Southeast Missouri play. They dropped a few games to out-of-area competition, but they played a tough schedule and really, really just ran into a monster there in the district tournament. Their district tournament had the reigning state champion in Class 4 and Class 3, so not what you want to have to see in your tournament. They lost to Narix Hall, which I'm trying to remember now. I have this written down somewhere, but off the top of my head, Narix Hall was into Jackson's season, I think the last 4 or 5 years, something like that. So tough way to go out. Kind of a common opponent you see a lot. But then Narix Hall had to play Jorge Zoo, who's probably the best team regardless of class, and then won the state title. So pretty tough. 2 state champions in your district, but good season for the Indians.
Yeah, they had 11 shutouts. So anytime you can 15-4 with 11 shutouts, great Steve.
That's a good point too. Yeah, 11 shutouts is crazy, especially because Cameron Alsdorf, who we mentioned, a great basketball player, is the starting goalie for the Indians, but she is also the starting goalie for them. And she got hurt midway through the season, and had a freshman step in, played really, really well in goal. Cameron got injured. I think it was a hand, came back, finished the season strong. So heck of a year for the Indians. Great defense. A lot of talent up front, scoring goals, and they're going to be losing a lot to graduation. I mentioned Maya Domian, kind of the big one there, who's 3-time All-Stater, going to SEMO. So shout out to her. Congratulations on that commitment. But, a lot of talent. Cameron Alsdorf, who I mentioned earlier in basketball, graduating in goal. Riley Monaghan, who had a great year up front as an attacker. Brooke Ballsman, great defender, going to be graduating. Mia Becker, good off the wing. Lily Conrad up front, going to be graduating. So they're going to lose a lot. But I don't know. They're one of those teams that they've sent 5, 6, 7, 8 girls to SEMO over the last few years, and then they turn around and win 15, 16, 17, 18 games again. So they are in a good spot. We'll see. Coach Besink, his first full year as the head guy, but I expect them to kind of keep it rolling what they had going on the last few years. So good stuff out of the Indians. Not a lot to ever complain about. Jackson girls soccer, they definitely show up throughout the year. And then speaking of, girls soccer here, Cape Central, a different scenario. They start the year 0-4, getting shut out 3 of those games. And you're like, hey, how's this going to go the rest of the season? But they flipped a switch. Coach Duncan McKinley over there mentioned how, honestly, they just kind of needed to play themselves in shape. Maybe some depth issues at time there. And so some girls kind of having issues running out of gas. But as the season got going, started picking up victories, kind of got kick-started, big 8-0 win over Kelly, but then they beat a good Sykeston team in the SEMO Conference, blew out Farmington, blew out North County, got a win over Carbondale, and then actually hosted the district tournament, won their first game, lost in the semifinals, though, to a good Notre Dame team who did end up winning the Class 3 District 1 championship. They finished the year 12-7. Another team that had a really, really tough start to the season. I saw an interview. The coach over there said, once we get to the back half of our schedule, we should be winning a lot of these ball games. That's what they did. They early on played a couple of Parkway schools, lost to Jackson, lost it to a couple teams on the Illinois side of St. Louis, Collinsville, and East or St. Charles East. But then once they got into Southeast Missouri play, did a lot better. Beat a good St. Vincent team, beat a tough Saxony team, dropped a double overtime loss at another very good St. Pius team. Picked up a lot of good wins, and then, like we said, got into Class 3 District 1 play, 3 straight shutouts for the Bulldogs. They scored 15 goals to 0 there in the district tournament, got the win over Festus in the final, 16-6 team going in. So a tough opponent, but they got it done. Then they did kind of run into a monster, St. Joe's, a team that has won a lot of state titles, including this year. They won the class title after beating Notre Dame. Got shut out there, but nothing to hang your head about. Good season for the Bulldogs. They are one of those teams who, of late has been maybe a tick below Jackson, but consistently the class of Southeast Missouri, definitely that upper tier. But we'll talk about losing a lot. They are losing a ton off this year's team. I'm going to go names. This is about to be like the basketball team. Cora Burford, Addison Clippard, very, very good up front. Had a great year for her. Skylar Kraft, I think also All-State. Sophia Emmons, Colby Grimes, Claire Henneman, Isabella Palmer, Stella Schwain, and Maya Shafar, also All-State. So they're going to lose a lot. They're going to be losing a lot of senior leadership, but they do have a small but good junior class coming back. Girls that have been contributing now for a couple seasons, Aiden O'Daniel, Mia Panton, Maya Tabo, who had a great season up front as well, and Lola Wonderleg. So it might be a little bit of a learning curve for some of the people who didn't get to play as much at the highest level on varsity. But, Notre Dame, maybe, like I said, maybe a tick below Jackson, but I still kind of put them in the same category of not a lot of rebuilding going on over there, a lot of reloading for the most part. So, that does it. Girls soccer wise, Saxony went 9-8. I almost forgot about Saxony. Saxony had a good season. They, might have struggled at times playing against what you can say is the big dogs of Cape County here, Notre Dame and Jackson. But overall, good season, 9-8. They had a weird scenario where they also had to play Perryville in back-to-back games, but they got the win over Perryville in the district tournament after losing to them 6-1 last game of the season, which I thought was a little weird to see. But they did run into that same St. Pius team that I said beat Notre Dame. Ended up coming up short there in the Class 3 District 1 tournament. But good year for the Crusaders. They are going to be losing some very talented players, though, as well. A pretty big senior class. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 girls. Going to be graduating, Ailey Miller and good stuff. Margaret Hillen, Isabel Brown, Faith Dreyer, Camille Ritchie, who I think was All-State as well. Amelia Wilson, Adelina Deckard, Abigail Haley. So a lot of names going out the door. We'll see if they're able to rebound. Only 3 juniors on the roster this past season, so we'll see how that goes for them. I do like what they did this year, though. They played well. Like I said, they struggled a little bit against Jackson, Notre Dame, but overall picked up some nice victories, went on the road, beat some good teams, Marion and penalty kicks, some high moments for them, knocking off SEMO conference competition, Sykeston, Cape Central. So a good year for the Lady Crusaders. I think we will now go up to baseball. Baseball, maybe the headliner of spring sports, I would say. This area, I don't know, Cody, what do you think? I think baseball, it's not basketball. It might not be football, but it's definitely one of the better sports in Southeast Missouri, and definitely one of the most, sports that people take the most seriously, some of the most the competition throughout the area.
For sure. Yeah, and as you talk about players going to play at the next level, a lot come from Southeast Missouri, especially Jackson has kind of been a feeder to a lot of these college programs.
Yeah, and the Indians, good year, weird year maybe, 23-15. Just a quick summary of it. Hey, they're district champions. They won 15 of their last 16 ball games, but it didn't start out as hot as people maybe expected. Jackson has gotten maybe gotten people used to winning a lot of ball games, not dropping some of these games early on in the season. It was a tough stretch to start. They were 500, they were below 500 at times early in the season. And it's just going to be the crossover episode of talking about everybody at once. Got to give our shout out to, you have it pulled up, Notre Dame beat Jackson and Kate beat Jackson, which was notable because, let me see, I have that pulled up. Notre Dame beat Jackson for the first time since 2021, and then Kate beat Jackson for the first time since 2017. So that was like a week that both of those games happened. And, I think a lot of people might have been looking a little bit sideways at Jackson, like maybe, what's going on with this team? yada, yada, yada. But, behind the scenes, they were dealing with a lot of injuries. Don't want to make excuses, but, they had their fair share of issues going on behind the scenes. And then they went into SEMO Conference tournament and really just kind of balled out from there, Cody.
Yeah, we were talking pre-season. I think they had something like 20 games scheduled in the first month. Yeah. I mean, they're playing a pretty brutal schedule. A lot of times when you do that, you get deep into pitching rotations. I mean, you deal with the fatigue and the dreariness, not to make excuses for the team, but they got off to a below average start for the Indians. Yeah. And, like you talked about, had a lot of people questioning. They do play, a pretty tough schedule when you talk about the worst of these teams being 500.
Yeah. I mean,
still
looking at
pretty
it,
brutal.
Triad, always very good over in Illinois. Vianney lost in the state championship game. I think went 38-2. Yep. McCracken County was a top 10 team in Kentucky. SLU, always very, very good. Then they played over at Rockbridge up in Columbia. Played Willard, who I think was number 1 in state at the time. Yep. Grain Valley, good team. Sedalia, good team. So, I mean, it was a brutal stretch. Like, obviously, they were losing the games, which made it brutal as well. But the teams they were playing were just absolutely out of this world at times. But, they went into you have it pulled up over there. They went into with a little bit of a win streak heading into the SEMO Conference tournament, which I think kind of really helped turn things around, get them in the right direction. Yeah,
they had won 3 in a row going into May. Obviously, beginning of May means SEMO Conference. They beat Dexter pretty handily there in that first game. Beat Poplar Bluff 3-0, and then we can say it once again. Game of the year, I think, in baseball was the SEMO Conference Championship. Cape Jackson. They go to extra innings. 1-1, and Jackson comes out of there. We stayed for part of that game. I have young kids, so had to get home before the end of it.
Yeah, eight innings doesn't do well for under 5-year-olds, 2 under 5-year-olds.
But Jackson wins that one 2-1. Very good game.
Yeah, that was huge. It was definitely the game of the year. SEMO Conference Championship. Cape going into that, I think they were on. Let me see, I have it on here. Yeah, I think they were on a 9-game win streak. So kind of loop Cape in here on this. Cape finishes the year 13-15. They started the year 0-6. Another team under new management. So maybe some questions. How's this going to work out? Coach Palmer, first year there. His kid Keegan had a great season. Slow start, but then they start reeling off wins. They get the huge one over Jackson, and that really set up the SEMO Conference tournament for sure. Really kind of got people fired up. Like, hey, this could go either way. And like you said, it was that way until the very end. I think Cape scored in the first inning, take a 1-0 lead, and then nobody scored after that until the top of the 7th. The Indians tied it up to send it to extras, and then they were able to win it. And let me see, I think it was Matt Carter. Yeah, Matt Carter won it in the top of the 8th. I think he was a leadoff hitter throughout the season. Matt Carter won it in the top of the 8th inning, or put him ahead in the top of the 8th inning. Cole Coburl got the tournament MVP. He pitched phenomenally. I think he went 7 innings.
Yeah, 12 strikeouts over 7 innings, and then Carter Shipman, another multi-sport athlete, comes in the 8th.
Yeah, good outside linebacker. He closed it out for him. Crazy game, great game. Chapman Ogles, who pitched for Cape, lefty, was awesome. Well, like I said, we'll start talking about them here in a second. I mean, Chapman Ogles, a kid who had a pretty bad arm injury, I think, as a freshman maybe. I don't want to get that messed up, but, had a lot of promise early on, maybe struggled with some injuries. Came back this year, had a great season. So, I mean, he went the distance in that game. Kind of stinks. You go the distance, give up 2 runs, but come short. And so for Jackson, that was kind of the huge momentum swing to keep things going their direction. They continue on, have a ton of victories to close out the season. And, they finished, 15 of 16 to close out the year. And they went into districts, tough district. They have Fox, Lindbergh, Kirkwood. Lindbergh, I mean, they were not expected to win after the Fox game. They played Lindbergh, who was the 1 seed, beat them 8-4, and then played Kirkwood. I remember that game because Drew Parsons, who you hear this a lot, good multi-sport athlete, was starting quarterback for the Indians. Shut out Kirkwood. Jackson wins 7-0 in the district title game. A lot of emotions for him because, he was the quarterback who dropped the game at Kirkwood. So felt like it was a big emotional get over the hump moment for him because the Kirkwood quarterback, also starting pitcher for them, Nesledge, pitched against Drew, and Drew got the better of him though in that one. So big time for Jackson, up in Class 6 now. Getting a district win is tough. Everybody you're playing against has kids going, somewhere, at least one kid going to the SEC, it feels like. So the Indians were definitely up against it, but come out, a couple of upsets over Lindbergh, Kirkwood, make it into the state tournament where it was a brutal ending. I was there, game 2. So what is actually kind of cool is they play a series, 3-game series in the quarterfinals. I thought it was neat. Jackson got to host Parkway South. Parkway South just pitching too much for the Indians. Gave up 1 run in each game. 3-1 game 1 went to Parkway South. Game 2 went to extra innings, and just a tough way to go out for the Indians. It was, that game, like I said, I was there. The Indians just couldn't get anything across the plate. They were on base all game. They were getting good contact on the pitcher. They were getting guys on base. I think double-digit kids got stranded by the end of it, but great pitching performance.
Yeah, Cole pitched that one
again. Cole Corborough just balled
two
out.
Two of the biggest games of the year.
And he was kind of a revelation. He was a kid who, was not one of those guys you looked at the beginning of the year being, hey, this kid's going to be an ace. It was not expected of him, but he came out and had an awesome season for the Indians start to finish. And so he's going to be playing at the next level. So that's exciting stuff for him. A lot of guys for Jackson going to be graduating. As you expect, a team that has that much success, obviously you've got a couple of kids going to be playing at the next level, high level at the next level. Peyton Kite, kind of the big man there, he's all state selection, going to be going to Bradley. But, Lance Wilson, Braden Smith, going to the next level. Cole, I mentioned, going to the next level. Cooper Rhodes, going to be playing at the next level. He got his, 100th career hit in the Parkway South game, if I remember right. Braden Akers, Maxwell Blackburn, Drake Weber, Benjamin Dombach. That's the thing. I say all these names, and these are all names of kids who played big roles, started big games, closed big games, had some of the best hitters in program history. All kids that contributed, all kids that played at a really, really high level. But I have faith, once again, Jackson baseball kind of feels like one of those programs that is, they lose a lot sometimes, but they are able to reload. Adler Flynn coming back, Drew Parsons coming back, Matt Carter Shipman. So a lot of guys who played a lot of big roles going to be coming back. And so I have a lot of faith in them next season as well. You got Notre Dame pulled up. It felt similar to the basketball team for Notre Dame. 14-14 finish, up and down throughout. Some good wins, some tough losses, Cody, but overall a good year, I would say, for the Bulldogs. Maybe not what they wanted, but a pretty good season, I'd say, overall.
Yeah, you mentioned 14-14. I didn't watch them play much. The game I saw, TJ Bolin, big presence on the mound for them. Obviously a well-known name in our area. But, yeah, you mentioned they beat Jackson there April 8th, 4-3, and had really kind of been on a high. And then from then on, it kind of seemed like things kind of fell off. They lose 7 in a row there through the middle of April, but then get back on track with a 4-game win streak. St. Pius, Dexter, Kennett, a lot of teams that they see across every sport, and then get into, they were Class 4 in baseball.
Yeah.
They dropped there 5-1.
Yeah, lost 5-1 to Fredericktown. Maybe a little bit of surprise, if we're being honest. I thought that was a game they could win. But, it's somewhat of an even matchup, I would say. A good season. TJ Bolin will be back next year. I liked him a lot on the mound. Played really, really well. They're a team that's losing some guys to the next level that made big impacts. But, yeah, good wins throughout the season. They had a good win streak. And they lost to Kelly, and they turned around and beat them. The SEMO Conference tournament, beat Dexter. So they finished the year, or they finished that tournament 2-1 after they lost close to Cape. But, yeah, good year for Notre Dame.
And when you talk about Cape Jackson, both being in our area, Notre Dame goes 2-1. against Cape and Jackson this year. So very good for them.
Yeah, good year for them. I want to see them kind of, maybe turn the corner, sitting around 500. They've kind of been in that area for now for about the last 4 or 5 years. Obviously, we'll get to more previews next season as we get a little bit closer, but they've been kind of sitting in that area around 500, 14-14, 14-13 the year before, 13-11. There's a program that, had a lot of success for a long time. Obviously, you can't control that a lot of times, just who's coming through the program at times, but they were a team that consistently was hanging around 20 wins. I hope to see them kind of push back up, get up to there. And they do have the kids coming back, I think, to be really competitive next year. Like I said, TJ Boland going to be leading the way on the mound. So excited to see where they can go. And we kind of touched on and off of Cape Central. I mentioned earlier they new coach, Coach Palmer over there taking over, and I mentioned as well weird year for them. Started 0-6. I admittedly kind of wrote them off. I was like, maybe hey. Year one, new coach, maybe rebuild a little bit, get some young guys up here, try to show them the ropes, yada yada, and then they just turned it around. I mean, it started with the win over Jackson, 5-4, close ball game, and then they just kept it rolling. They dominated. They hosted a wood bat tournament there. I went over there for that, saw a couple of those games. They went undefeated in that, won at Kelly, and beat Notre Dame and Sykeston in the SEMO Conference Tournament, where we talked about the championship game where they lost to Jackson. But I don't know, it's a combination maybe of playing tough opponents down the stretch, or maybe a little bit of the air got deflated out of you. Losing to the Indians in such a big way there, or the big, emotional way. The end of the year did not go well for the Tigers. And they lost a lot of close games, but they lost, at Crothersville by a run, lost to Bluff by 3 in a game that was really close throughout and kind of got away from them late. They do bounce back, beat St. Pius, but they turn around and lose again at Marion, lost at Notre Dame in a great game by 1. They lose at home against Oakville to end the season, beat DeSoto. So they do come in a tough spot, have to play a good Festus team in Class 5, District 1. Festus maybe kind of underachieved during the regular season. They were one of the favorites in the class going in. It's a brutal way to go out. 2-1 in the district tournament there. Festus just with enough timely hitting, timely pitching to in the Tigers season. But they are a team, I said there's some good talent they're going to be going out the door, but they only lose 4 seniors, obviously impactful seniors. Keegan Palmer, coach's son, was awesome on the mound, really, really good at the plate as well. He really impressed me. Braden Mead, going to be playing at the next level. Declan Pittman, good multi-sport athlete. Travis Clipful, those are the 4 seniors, but they got a lot of guys coming back. A lot of guys who are really good players, led the team in a lot of categories. Christian McNew, he's the one that came up with the game-winning hit over Jackson. Good behind the plate. Jathan Spain, good player. Connor Poole, Hayden Bowers, Chapman Ogles, Caden Chenoweth, all these guys. Juniors going to be seniors next year. I think they have a chance to really lead them to a good season, if I had to guess, for the Tigers. Then let me see. I think the last team we got to mention here is Saxony, 14-8 on the season. I mean, look, there's one thing I want to talk about with Saxony, and that is that they scored 30 runs against Ellington in one game, Cody. And a guy we mentioned earlier, I think I alluded to it, Braden Moore, I think got the game-winning goal in their first ever win against Notre Dame in soccer. The kid had the greatest game in the history of baseball. I'm just going to unofficially say that. He went 4 for 6. All 4 hits were home runs. 2 of the home runs were grand slams, and they both came in the same inning. And also that totaled 14 total RBIs, which is the most in the history of Misha baseball. So he got his name in the record books a lot, thanks to one game. Saxony, though, like I said, good year. 14-8 on the season. They did win a game in districts. They're in a really tough district. They're in a district with Scott City, who they ultimately fell to, who was number 1 in state. And then they lost to East Prairie, who was top 5 in state all season long. But really, really tough district. And Saxony kind of did what you would expect at times. They beat the teams that they should beat. Might have lost to some of the better teams. They played Scott City a couple times, lost to them, lost to good St. Pius, lost to East Prairie. Dropped a game to Kelly Oran, who got third in state, I believe. So the small schools in here around Southeast Missouri are awesome at baseball. Yeah, they, like I said, they beat the competitions that they should. Advance, Scott County, Woodland, Delta, Puxico, all those teams. They put up a ton of runs. The offense was crazy. I mean, I said they scored 30 runs in a game. You look at it, they scored 17 against East Carter, 21 against Scott County, 10, 13, 10. Like, they put up a lot. And, they lost in districts, second round there to Scott City, but they did go on the road and beat Kelly at Kelly, who they had previously lost to earlier in the year. So good stuff for them. Good way to kind of close out the season. They finished well down the stretch. They do lose a couple important guys, but they do only lose 3 seniors. So Isaac Koenig, Jason Sparks, and then Braden Moore, who, led a lot of the way there for them. Those are the only 3 seniors on the team, so they do have a lot of experience coming back. And, I expect them to kind of put up good numbers again next season, play well, and maybe even improve on their showing this year a little bit. So that is for baseball. The last thing I think we have to talk about, track and field. A little bit tougher to talk about because there's not just like teams and records and things like that, but a lot of good showings for, teams in the area, schools in the area, Southeast Missouri. Saxony sent several to the state meet. Their girls on the field side, really, really good job showing out a little bit. And some guys who are going to be coming back next year, did a lot of good stuff. Maxim Mayhew in the 400, always very good. Nishan Davis in the hurdles, ran well throughout the season. He won the 100-meter hurdles in the SEMO conference meet, which was one of the biggest upsets of the season, over Patrick Slack. And, I like what I saw out of them. They ran well, especially when they ran against teams for their classification, things like that. They did a really, really good job. Over at Notre Dame, a couple of kids already mentioned it was the distance for Notre Dame. I mean, the distance team was awesome. Again, Aiden Morris, phenomenal job over there for the Bulldogs. Martina Ressel, Lily Coy, both making it to state in the long distance races. They did well. But I've talked about it a few times. Actually, I mentioned Cape Central. Cape Central had a couple of kids who finished really, really high at the state meet. Over on the field side of things, it was, the guy I talked about all season long in the pole vault, Kent Sheridan. Kent Sheridan was, he was head and shoulders better than anybody in Southeast Missouri, one of the best in the entire state. He's coming off a third-place finish last year, or the year before, in the track and field, the pole vault. This year gets to the state meet. Kind of cruises there. He wins first in districts. He gets first in sectionals. He got first in the SEMO conference meet. Got second in the pole vault. Set the school record in pole vault. Set a lot of individual meet records, track records, different places. Comes in second. The guy in front of him, I guess you can notably say, is graduating. So hey, Kent Sheridan, the favorite to be a state champion Class 5 next year. Definitely looking forward to that. And then, the guy who impressed me all season over in the throws, Isaiah Husky in the shot put, comes in third in Class 5. Absolutely monster throw, hits a PR. And the 2 guys he came in behind are both from Nixa and are both freaks of nature. And one of them will probably not be throwing next year. Jackson Cantwell, who's going to be, I think, probably enrolling early over at the University of Miami, who's maybe the greatest athlete in the history of the Missouri state sports. So I think there's a good chance he won't be throwing. They will be bringing back the other guy who got second. So Isaiah Husky definitely in a spot to maybe, stick around at third place, maybe get in second, maybe get first. So we'll see how it goes for him, but a huge year throwing for him. He dominated competition in Southeast Missouri. He was absolutely awesome. And then talk about Jackson. There's a lot of people who ran well throughout the season. Jackson, pretty balanced team across, boys, girls, field, on the track. On the girls' side, Annika Barks getting 4th place in the 3,200 was really, really tough. Class 5, she came in behind, 3 girls that are going to be running at high levels. The one I talked with Ty Crown last week, one cool one, Emmy Gross got 5th in the discus. That was the first year she's ever thrown discus before. Pretty good first year. And then shout out to Dr. Fox, my dentist, keeping what teeth I have left in place. His daughter gets 6th place in the pole vault as only a freshman, so that's pretty cool to see. And then, it kind of begins and ends over on the boys' side. You've got the two best runners in two of the best in what they do in Southeast Missouri, and two of the best to ever do it at Jackson. You got Blaine and Barrett Reagan. I mean, I can't say enough about them. Blaine gets sixth in the 100, and then turns around, as you probably know by now, gets first in the 400. His brother Barrett gets fourth in the 400. They both run under 48 seconds, which had never even been done at Jackson until this past year, and they both did it in one race. So, I mean, they're freaks of nature. They're insane. You know, Blaine played two other sports throughout the year. Just shows up, breaks the school record in his first meet of the season in the 400. So, I mean, if you want to hear more about Blaine and Barrett Reagan, go check out our last video. I talked to Ty Crowden for about 2 hours just about those two. Yeah, no, I mean, they were incredible. And, you know, outside of baseball, the most fun moment of the year or of the spring sports season was that 400-meter run. Blaine and John Moss from Hickman kind of battling it out for first place. Both those kids are sophomores. The Moss kids from Hickman, I mean, insane race. I think Moss might have won. He definitely placed high in the 200 as well. Like, the kid's a phenomenal athlete, and they got to face off. And the funniest part, once it's posted on our Facebook page, I, clipped the entire race, put it on there, and my favorite part of it is the announcer kind of started anointing John Moss as a state champion the last 100 because Blaine was down 5 to 8 meters going into the last 100. Just ran him down. He kind of did what he does best, stuck with his training. It didn't look like he didn't struggle. His form didn't change from the first 5 meters to the last 5 meters. And yeah, he chased down Moss, got him at the tape, ran 47:05, I think. Absolutely bananas. And then, like I said, Barrett ran like 47:92. He wasn't even in the picture the last leading into the last 200. When you're watching it on the screen, Barrett, you couldn't even see Barrett. He came all the way around, hawked down about 2 or 3 guys, and came up there. Both of them finishing on the medal stand. It was so much fun. Watching Blaine run down Moss was awesome. So big time stuff out of those guys. Both of them are going to be back next year on the track. Like a week later, Blaine and Barrett were down in Albuquerque, New Mexico, running in a race, and Blaine ran under 47 seconds. So whatever they want to do in the record books of Jackson, they're going to do, and probably nobody for a long time, if ever, is going to catch them in the 400. So I think that was another thing Ty and I talked about was all the guys ahead of Blaine record-wise in the 400 meters are all like Olympians. So pretty good company. Yeah, those guys were awesome. They're a lot of fun to watch. And then, like I said, they'll be back next year. If we're just given, Blaine Reagan being the starting cornerback as a sophomore, the best 400-meter runner of all time. Like the second fastest 100 and 200-meter runner of all time at Jackson. It's on a pretty good track, I think, so far. Only going to be a junior next year. So you have the SEMA Ball Awards pulled up for the rest of the spring sports.
Yeah, we get into boys tennis. That's what you talked about first. Matthew Austin from Notre Dame.
Yeah, kind of the lone guy here. We'll see how it works out. The Poplar Bluff kids played really well. I'll be rooting for Matthew and his 36 on the ACT. It gives him the tiebreaker, in my opinion.
You get into boys golf. You have Bryce Gabler from Saxony. You have Marshall Earnhardt Clements from Jackson.
Yeah. Both of them, obviously, I talked about, finished well. But, the Poplar Bluff kids, one of them is going to the Corbin Thomas kid, I think, is going to win it. They're disgusting.
Yeah, Marshall's the only senior on that list in boys golf. So
yeah.
You get into girls soccer, more about these than I do.
Yeah, a lot of representation here. Maya Domian from Jackson, Rudy Klun from Jackson. Rudy will be back next year. Maya going to be graduating. It's going to be tough. So, also from our area, Addison Clipper from Notre Dame and Maya Tebow, both incredible seasons. Camille Ritchie from Saxony. All these girls, all state type seasons. I'm biased, and she's going to SEMA, and she was all state 3 years in a row. Maya Domian would be my pick. Lana Adams, though, from St. Vincent's also nominated, and she did score like 50 goals and lead them to second place in their class. She'll probably end up winning, but I'm going to give it to her under protest officially. And they have softball in here, which is I guess combined between the fall and spring seasons, but Got Ashlyn Dawes, from Jackson. Really good season from her so far. Only a junior, going to be back next year. Kenna Johnson from Notre Dame, only a sophomore, going to be back from next year. I'm interested to see how this goes. There's a lot of talent. I mean, the Kaylin Decker girl, only a freshman at Oak Ridge, might be the greatest softball player of all time in Southeast Missouri.
Took her team to state.
Like 14. So that's not too shabby. Handley McAtee from Kennett, good at softball. Also, like maybe the best tennis player of all time in Southeast Missouri. But there's a lot of competition there. We'll see. Kaylin Deckard probably deserves it from Oak Ridge. We'll see if they give it to a freshman or not. TBD. Baseball, you have a few. I guess Peyton Kite's the only one from Cape County, right? Yeah. Or no, Drew Parsons is. Yeah. Drew Parsons is. Oh, excuse me. Drew Parsons is the one nominee from Cape County. It'll be interesting. I don't know who's going to win this. I don't think it's going to be Drew. Noah Johnson from East Prairie. He's going to be going to SIUE, I think. Kobe Watson from Scott City. It'll be tough. I don't know. I can't give you a real good pick on this.
A lot of kids that went to state on this list.
Yeah. Because some we didn't mention, some we haven't talked about a lot. East Prairie went on a good run. Chaffee.
Yeah, Easton Fowler from
Oran went on a run. They have 2 kids on the list. So I don't know. We'll see. Ryland Mills probably going to be the one to get it if I had to pick from Oran. And then girls track and field. This is a loaded crew. You got to probably give it to Carly-Ann Kosu. She's insane. Her name is on this list like 3 other times, but for other sports, only a sophomore. Let's see if I can pull this up. I think she got first place in the 100-meter hurdles and the 300-meter hurdles. And she also placed on the medal stand in 2 other events. So, she scored like 35 points by herself in the state meet. It probably has to be her. But yeah, a lot of good options, from Jackson, Annika Barks, Amelia Fox, Emerson Gross, all on here. A lot of good athletes, non kind of outside of our area. Amaya Bills, state champion. Aranji Jackson, state champion. Both of them only a freshman and sophomore, by the way. So a lot of really good talent in track and field, and a lot of that talent going to be coming back next year. Abby Spooler from Notre Dame, great career. So that'd be a tough bet. I don't know. I'm going to give it to Kosu, I think, from Chaffee. Probably going to be the leader in my clubhouse. Boys track and field. This is tough, too, because you've got, from our area, Blaine Reagan's on the list. Kent Sheridan, Isaiah Husky, who I've talked about. Trenton Powell. Yeah, somebody I didn't really talk about. Great hurdler, great season for him. Kind of got overlooked at times because of another guy on the list named Patrick Slack, who runs into 100 and 300 hurdles as well. One of the best to ever do it in Southeast Missouri. This is going to be tough. So you've got multiple state champions in singular events. Jermonte Alexander from Crothersville. Hayden Van Gennep from Woodland. I genuinely don't know what they're going to pick. It's, in my opinion, between Blaine Reagan, Chris Artis from Sykeston was a state champ, Patrick Slack, and I think Jermonte Alexander won a state championship. But
a lot of seniors too.
Yeah, a lot of older guys on this list. I'm going to be biased and pick Blaine Reagan because he got first in one event, 4th or 6th in another event. He's also the fastest 200-meter runner in Southeast Missouri. He just didn't run that either. So we're just going to give it to him because I am biased, openly, admittedly. And then you have those on the next 2 awards on here. Kind of neat. I don't know if they've done this before. I keep up with the SEMO Ball Awards. We talked about never been, but they have Freshman of the Year awards, Cody, which is kind of cool. I don't know if it's ever been done before. If they've been doing it, if it has, ignore that ignorance. But some really, really good talent freshman wise on here.
Yeah, you have five of each. So the 5 female Freshmen of the Year finalists are Carson McAllister from Cape Central, Kaylin Deckard from Oak Ridge, Ranji Jackson from New Madrid, Kate Deck from Jackson, and Holly Haynes from Charleston. So very good freshmen.
Yeah. Pretty good freshman class. Like I said, Carson McAllister, state champion. Kaylin Deckard, softball GOAT already. Ranji Jackson, state champion. Kate Deck already has 3 college offers in basketball and best basketball player in a 25-win team. Insane crew. I don't know. Deckard had crazy individuals numbers. Yep. Jackson and McAllister, both state champions in individual sports. So not really a wrong pick. And then on the boys side, 3 of them in our county. You have Wesley Patterson from Sykeston, Zach Roth of Saxony, Aiden Morris of Notre Dame, Memphis Maddox of Jackson, and Caleb Redden from Clarkton. I don't know where you're going to go there either. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I mean, I like Memphis Maddox a lot. One of the more fun names, alliterative names. Good runner. I'm going to see him more in the backfield. Cody and I will be, and we'll talk about that one day in football. But I don't know. Aiden Morris put up some big stats as a freshman. Might lean that way. And then the overall athletes of the year, we got any in Caper Jackson, Cody, from boys or girls side?
Yeah, from Bryson Wessel is up for male athlete of the year.
Okay.
From Jackson.
Not bad. So overall male athlete, we'll see. Is he the only? He's the only non-senior on the list. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, once again, if I'm being biased Caleb here, which I am all the time, Bryson Wessel was an all-state left tackle. He was fourth place in wrestling at 285, and then he was ninth in the discus in state in class 5.
Yeah,
so
you'd like to see Bryson win it. Kobe Watson from Scott City would probably be.
He's gonna be tough to beat because he was crazy on the baseball diamond this year, and their best player in basketball. Noah Johnson, same thing. He's the best basketball player at East Prairie, and the best pitcher. Really, really good player. So it's gonna be tough to beat. Like I said, scholar athlete. Don't know anything besides Matthew Austin got a 36 on his ACT. He's my winner. All the girls, I don't know what any of your GPA or your ACT score is, but I do know one kid, so I'm giving him the win, the unofficial win, stamped by Caleb Deloach. Give it to him. Oh, all right. Well, get to exhale now. And that's every sport. I think we covered it all, or almost all of it. If we missed anything, you can send Cody all your angry emails. Send it to Cody.
Hopefully you get this whole podcast listened to your way to and from work.
Yeah, maybe a couple of times, maybe a couple of days. Maybe over a couple of days back and forth from work, depending on where you live. Yeah, I don't know. Cody, you got anything else you want to talk about before we go? We talked about a little bit of everything. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of fun. I mean, being just generic, it was a really, really fun year of sports. A lot of our teams just here in Cape County, did a lot, played really, really well across the board. Just about every sport, there was somebody that, was winning a ton of ball games, was making runs into state. Individual sports, we had some kids winning state titles. We, made a lot of big pushes, made deep runs there, finished highly in a lot of different sports, swimming, track and field, etc. So, I mean, a great year. A lot of really, really talented athletes going to be graduating as well. So, a lot of good talent heading out the door. But, we talked about it a few times. There's a lot of kids up for a lot of those awards on SEMO ball that are, freshmen, sophomores, even juniors. So I think the future is going to be bright still, Cody.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I don't remember there being a year where we were this excited about all the kids coming back and all the underclassmen possibly winning some awards.
Yeah, we'll be doing more previews throughout the summer. I was kind of looking at the calendar. We've got, we have about another couple months worth of weeks left here. We have, I think, 7 weeks after you see this one left before you get to the school year or before you get to the first sports kicking off. Football, I think is August 29th to be the first game.
We're recording this on Sunday, so 2 months from today,
wow,
football season.
Oh, yeah, flying by. June already over with. Kind of sad. I mean, not for me. I just work I work 5 days a week regardless. All you people, under 18, I'm sure that's really sad for you. My schedule never changes. Yeah, it's been an exciting year. I had a lot of fun. Like I said, Cody and I, we get to do Jackson football, basketball. So I guess you could say we get kind of lucky seeing a couple of really good programs play the first, 5 months out of the year, whatever it is. So that kind of does a good job taking up our time, but it'll be fun. We're going to talk some more sports over the summer as we get a little bit closer down. We start winding down over the next month or so. We'll come back on, start talking about some fall previews, start previewing football. Some, Cody and I kind of alluded to, we're pretty optimistic about Jackson going into this next year. Cape Central's got some good teams coming back, good kids coming back, and then Saxony, first year of moving up to varsity. So Cody and I will definitely be talking a lot of football. We're excited to do that. We started middle of basketball season this past year, so we're excited to see kind of see where it goes. It's been fun and. Gonna have a good rest of our summer here. Hopefully, talk to some more interesting people. Hopefully, get a few more interviews out, talking to some different folks. So see how that goes. And appreciate it, Cody. All done.
It was awesome.
Awesome. Fun time here. Talked for a long time, as I enjoy doing, as always, but I appreciate you, all of you guys that do listen, all of you that watch. Great episode, great school year of sports this year. So been a lot of fun recapping it here with Cody again, getting back in the studio together. So I appreciate all of you. Make sure to, follow, like, subscribe, whatever it might be, wherever you listen, wherever you watch. Appreciate that as always. Just, say it all the time. I'm not here to push my popularity. All I want to do is get more of these kids' names in front of your guys' ears and eyes and, kind of applaud what they do and kind of prop up what they do, because they're the ones out there, practicing every day after school, during the summer, stuff like that. So all that work leads to a lot of fun viewing experiences. So we really appreciate it. And so we want to get their recognition here. So we appreciate all you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we will see you in the next one.